Ah yes, the dreaded no space left on device error message. Guess what? You're out of disk space, and you have to find out why. So why don't we take a look at this machine that I've already broken, and we can figure out what's using up all that disk space. So why don't we start by taking a look at this box that's broken right here. No space. But we're going to verify that by taking a look at the df command, the disk-free command, to take a look at what's going on with this system. And I like to use a couple of additional options, the -H to make it human readable, and P to do pre-formatting. So it gives you this nice table. And sure enough, right up here, we can see that dev VDA3 is 100% used. So if we try to create any more files, or store any additional things, or make files larger, we're going to get that no space left on device error message for anything in this file system. So how do we find what's using up all of our disk space? For that, we have a couple of different approaches. It kind of depends on how it's broken. So for this one, what I've done is I've created a really large file, maybe a runaway log file, that has consumed all the disk space on the machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use du, the disk usage command. I'm going to tell it where to start looking at the disk usage. So the slash tells it to start looking at the topmost directory on the system. It's going to check every subdirectory out there. And then I'm going to sort that output. So by default, du will give you a amount of disk space each directory in your directory structure is using, all the files in that each directory are using. And it's going to be in like number of blocks being used. So we're going to use that, but we're interested in the really big files. So I'm going to use the sort command to go through that list of files and actually sort it based off of its usage. And I need to do two other things. One is I need to use the sort command to sort numbers. The -N says use this as a number, because otherwise it'll use an ASCII sort, and that'll give you all kinds of weirdness. The last thing is I'm interested in the largest thing first. Typically with sort, we will get the smallest thing first all the way through the largest thing last, and I'm going to do a reverse sort using the R option to make sure that I get the biggest things first and the smallest things last. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pipe that to less, so I can see that output one screenful at a time. All right, so what we see is our topmost used directories are the slash directory, which is what we're getting our disk space errors out of. But then underneath of that, the var subdirectory and the var log subdirectory. And then we change gears and we go over to user and some stuff in user. So I think var log is probably our culprit. So let's take a look at it. So if we do an ls-l in var log, sure enough, right there at the top, a file called biglog, which is using 36 gigs of space. That's probably my culprit. So if I delete it, and then again run my df-h capital P, you can see we went from 100% disk usage on this file system to 10%, right? So we found that runaway log file that had slurped up all of our disk space, removed it, and now we're back to consumable disk space again. All right, but another way that your disk can fill up is maybe somebody hasn't created one giant massive file. Instead, they've created a bunch of sort of large files. So for that, we're going to use a similar approach. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to verify our disk usage with df, right? Looking at the disk free. And again, I like the human readable pre-formatted output. And again, we can see that dev VDA3 is 100% used. So if I use my du command like I did before to look at the disk usage, slash of the entire machine, pipe into sort, reverse numeric sort, and less, we go through and we get a list and it says var cache, lots of files, and then it goes into user and some other directories. So var cache lots of files is probably our culprit. But unlike before, where we looked at the directory and there's one massive file, now if we look at var cache, lots of files, we see a giant pile of files. And if I do a long listing, by adding on the -L option. They're all roughly the same size, but there's just a lot of them. And so together, they're consuming all the free disk space on the machine. Right, same deal. If we delete them, we would then be able to free up that disk space and use it for other things. The third way that things might be broken, maybe you don't just have a directory full of stuff or one giant file. Maybe you have largest files kind of sprinkled around the system. So for those, we're going to have to use the find command to locate them. And you then tell it where to start looking. So we're going to look at /, the topmost directory on the system, and it's going to go through every subdirectory looking for files that match some criteria. Well, what criteria? How about we tell it we're looking for things with a size of greater than 10 megabytes. So plus, greater than, a number, 10, and then your unit of measure. We're using megabytes. And what we'll get out of this is a listing of all the files on the entire system that are larger than 10 meg. And so we can go through and actually decide whether we want to keep that file or get rid of that file to then delete stuff and clear up free disk space so that we can then consume it using other files and directories. So that's 3 approaches to handling your no space left on device error message. Look for a giant file. Look for a directory with a bunch of files. Or use the find command to go around and look for files of a certain size on your system. Having other errors with Linux? Need some more Linux troubleshooting content? Check out the links in the description.